Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. If you're in the chat and you can hear me, say hi, please. Okay. Looks like people are coming in. Thank you, Christine E. All right. Let me go ahead and share this, put this out on Twitter real quick. So we are going to talk about what everybody wants to talk about tonight, I'm sure. So we'll go through that, which means that this will be a little bit different than a lot of live streams, in the sense that not everybody may be acknowledged today, because we'll be providing a lot of commentary and going forward with a lot of stuff. So not everything is going to get addressed. And I will start off by saying, yes, I have watched it. I've gone through it. Yeah, it's bad. Thank you, Anna L.A. The system of law enforcement in this country is a failure. Tear it down. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with how I normally get ready to watch footage like that, I normally take what I have heard and create a scenario that is just absolutely horrible. Create the worst possible set of events that I can imagine. That way, when I watch it, what is actually on the film is nowhere near what I have pictured in my head ahead of time. That's normally what happens. What I pictured is pretty close to what's actually on the film this time. Now, I do want to point out that because they've been charged, there's a lot of language that is going to be different in the media when they are talking about it. And just to be clear, these are all allegations. This is how I viewed things. It's what appears. None of what has been said is going to, or has been tested in court yet. Innocent till proven guilty, all of that stuff. Let's start with the questions that people always ask after something like this. If you are somebody who doesn't want to watch the video, I have retweeted over on Twitter. I retweeted a summary from Robert Evans. I think his handle is @IWriteOK. Write is in the verb. And yeah, that's a pretty good summary. In this case, one of the things he points out is he does not understand what started it. Neither do I. It appears that from the very beginning, there was a rush to escalate to physical contact. We don't know why. I would like to know what caused that. And that's not a situation in which I'm saying, oh, there's context from before the video that's going to make that okay. In my opinion, there isn't anything that's going to make that okay. Even if there was some bizarre situation that would justify the first rush to contact, it does not excuse everything that's on the video. Then the obvious follow-up question is, are they breaking the rules that we've constantly talked about on this channel? Yes, of course they are. It's all of them. There are ways to give commands, and you're never supposed to have more than one person giving commands at a time. They do that constantly. They give unclear commands. They give conflicting commands. They give commands that can't be complied with at the time. There's a whole lot of that. Best practices were The prosecution will certainly attempt to show that best practices and policy were not followed. That's going to be their case. I think they probably have a pretty strong case from the moment he hit the ground. So there are already people talking about the resistance aspect of it. There's in order for that to matter, they're going to have to justify the initial rush to contact. And then they would also have to justify if you have to hold the person up, they are not resisting. There's a lot in this that is just from my view is very wrong. That will certainly come out in court. So, okay, I'm going to try to get through some of the stuff that has come in and go from there. And understand, sometimes I may just read your name, like Ed Banger. Thank you. Due to the legal situation, I can't actually read your comment. I will say that I have a whole lot of questions about what occurred prior to this and whether there may have been a motivation that has not been uncovered. I'll also say that I'm fairly certain there is more footage that will not come out until the trial. There's I don't believe that they released everything that they have, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Kyrie and Mina. Hey, Bo, I'm absolutely going through it, but I feel good knowing whatever you are raising money for is worth it and will help others. Okay, so tonight we don't actually have anything that we're raising money for. This kind of came out. We'll probably come up with something after the fact, but there is no set cause tonight. This is doing a live stream to answer some of the questions that I am sure are out there. Thank you, Tauber Couple. This terrifies me as a deaf person. It would be very easy for me to be resisting. Yeah. You know, when we talk about it on the channel, there's a set way in which you're supposed to do this. You're not supposed to say lay on the ground. Lay on the ground can mean a whole lot of things. Lay on your belly, do it now. Put your arms out to your side, do it now. Put your hands behind your head and interlock your fingers, do it now. There's a set way that they're actually taught to do this. And it was not followed. And oftentimes you will hear officers who have been on the street a while ask their training instructors, why don't you teach it the way we do it on the street? Because the way you do it on the street's wrong. That's why. Failing to follow that is probably something the prosecution is going to say directly led to what occurred. Now, officers should be trained to understand and to recognize the signs when somebody is deaf. But as we point out repeatedly on the channel, they don't often follow their training. So yeah, it is a very real concern. Thank you, Kathy Buntia. Thank you, Edgelord. Thank you. Thank you, Nick, a beauty queen's bag. Thank you, Janet Michelson. Thank you, Miriam Wallace. Thank you, Jonathan Middleton. Timo Michael. We'll be able to talk about how the death of someone has turned into a media spectacle. Yeah, that's going to be a video in the future, like scheduling a premiere as to when the video. Yeah, That's that will be something that definitely comes up in the future, no doubt. Thank you, Rob. I can't handle watching the video tonight, so instead, a moment of levity. There was a racehorse named Poto because they didn't understand potato. Oh, they didn't understand pot 8-0, and they put 8 O's. That's fantastic. Thank you, Sir Vagabond. Do you think the delay of the video until after 6 was to increase possibility of disturbance, or increase or decrease them? I think in their mind it's decrease, or more importantly, decrease the number of people that are in an area that might be impacted. I don't know how good that logic is. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Martin Burgeon. First time catching you live. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Amber, for whatever help the next crisis calls for. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my Canadian friend. Could anyone hear the audio from the elevated camera? Not really. I had a hard time. I couldn't get it. Thank you, Benson. Thank you, Lorelei. Thank you, Patrick Brannon. Thank you, The Blah. Thank you, Peter Smith. I am not familiar with that story, but now I'll Google it and see what's there. Roger Caleb Rogerson. Thank you, Teresa Bell. I bought a few apparel. Thank you. There is nothing stranger to me than seeing one of our, like, the channel's shirts on somebody in the public. It's a really weird feeling. Pyroplasma. I've done it. I've stopped racism. Okay. Thank you, Daniel D. Hey there, Bo. You contributed to pulling me out of a right-wing rabbit hole during a difficult time in my life and showed me how the right targets people like I was. Thanks for the wake-up call. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I could help. Phenomena, maybe. Thank you. Kevin Shields. Are the F-16s really on the way next? They might be. It's certainly being discussed. Thank you, EV84. I don't want to watch it, but want to know what happened. Can you summarize without grisly details? And how's Miss and Sonia? Okay, so the details. It's Rodney King, but worse. If you want to kind of summarize it without getting into it, that's what you're dealing with. But worse, almost. There's a lot of people who say that it almost seems personal. I don't know that that's the case. It historically, when you see it escalate the way it did, right from the beginning, it's more of a pattern within a department. Of course, I'm not saying that that's what happened in Memphis, but historically, that's what you end up with. It's something where smaller acts were tolerated for so long that they become common practice, and then it boils over. And Zanya is fine after tripping. Yeah, tripping my wife. For those who don't know, we got a new German Shepherd, a little baby puppy. And yeah, my wife swears the dog was intentionally tripping her. Um, Thank you, Silent Trimmer. Well, I knew it was coming. I was certainly hoping for a more light-hearted focus tonight. Maybe later. Maybe later. It's just there's a bunch of questions, and I just want to make sure that if there's something I can help clarify, I do. Thank you, Derek Espinoza. Thank you, Bob. Funny how all the LEOs charged are black. That does stand out. This was part of a specialized group. I'm a real analysis of this when you're not talking about the tactical aspects that occur at the time. Any real analysis of this should compare the way the officers were treated by their union, by the administration, everything in comparison to people who don't look like them. That should be a part of any analysis that occurs. There are people that are better versed at doing that than I am. In this case, there's one area of it where I can contribute a lot, and so I tend to focus on those. But yeah, it's a question. I would like to see comparisons between other incidents in Memphis and see if the police union was as quiet as they were about this one. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Sir Kimsey Godel. Yeah, horrific is a good word for it. Thank you, Ross Hargett. Is it just me, or have police gotten even worse since Floyd? I don't think so. I think it's catching more attention. I think it's probably the same. It's just getting more attention. Keep in mind, this is an incident that without footage, nobody would believe that what happened. These types of incidents have been happening forever. And it's only since the advent of everybody having a camera in their pocket and body cams and surveillance camera everywhere that it's really been something that the victim can prove. So I don't think it's actually getting worse. I think they're getting caught more. Okay. Thank you, Midnight Man. Thank you, Denise Parrish. Thank you, BG Maxi. Hello, Bo from South America here. What happened with the Bo but in Spanish? You were asked about in Twitter. Did you find any? Could you list them? There's a list under that tweet that people recommended. Yeah, so a person was basically looking for somebody with roughly my style of presentation, but in Spanish and more focused on Latin American events or South American events. So I'm trying to remember. I can't remember any of their names, but if you saw it on Twitter, you're on Twitter. So under that tweet, there's a whole bunch of recommendations from people. Thank you, Auntie K's Terra Insights. Internalized racism is personal. Yeah. Thank you, Jay Bester. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom these days. I want to ask you, how would you handle a family member becoming more and more conservative while still trying to remain close to them? Well, that's hard. It depends on what you mean by conservative. If you mean they become more fiscally conservative and they start to buy into that rhetoric, that's one thing. If it crosses the line out of politics and into simple facts of morality and just the way you view and treat other people, that becomes very hard. It becomes hard to remain close to somebody who doesn't share your core beliefs. I don't have advice on that one. I don't know how you would do it. It's when they start othering people and taking things to a level that isn't just political, but we're talking about, well, I mean, bigotry. It's hard to remain close. Um, thank you, Steve Stevie Biana. Stevie Biana. I'm never going to be able to say that. Bo, thank you for being a voice of reason in the midst of chaos. You are appreciated. Sent to Biana in Kansas. Weird Thoughts one. We do not have a we don't have a cause tonight. This is more just answering questions. I was not really aware of. I didn't know I was going to need to go live tonight in this way. Would you do a video on managing the press in an event like this? I think that's what they tried to do, and I think they failed. But yeah, that's something that we can talk about. I definitely believe that the law enforcement community here, they did the right thing by acting, but they did it in such a way that built up the possibility of things spiraling out of control. Let's see. Peter, I've got 3 German Shepherds. They trip you all the time. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We already have one, and we have a giant husky. I don't know why this was so surprising to her. Maybe because Zanya, the new puppy, is tiny. She's still a baby. But yeah, it doesn't matter though. They are still best friends. I from Iowa. Thank you. Didn't watch. 2 firefighters were dismissed. Seems like dispatchers, EMTs, etc., are contributing to horrific behaviors across the country. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's up with that yet. I have theories, but I want, again, because legal proceedings have already started, there's some things that I don't want to say. I've heard that there is some sort of hand gesture on a kidnapping victim can give. Could you demonstrate it? I've seen a couple of these online. I don't know that there's any universal one or any that is recognized internationally or even nationally or at the state level. I don't know that there's anything like that. I'll see. I'll look into it and see what I can find on this. And if I can find one, I'll put out a video about it. New boot goofin video request. Yeah, I will have. I'm going to have somebody back on the other channel over on the Roads with Bo, and they may be able to provide a whole lot of insight into exactly how to do that. Thank you, Bose Einstein. Any ideas? Is the regime going away? In Iran, I don't know. That's one that I haven't been covering because I can't cover that and Ukraine to my own satisfaction. I can't do both. And I was already covering Ukraine. I don't want to put out bad information. So I'm going to focus on the one that I'm already involved with. Thank you, Tom McGrath. Let's see. Eric Parnell, Break the Hammer. Thank you, Woody Woodman. The fact that this is filmed is why we even know it happened. This is why they're trying to pass laws against filming law enforcement. Yeah, if you care about this issue, which most people should, opposing any law trying to stop people from filming or documenting law enforcement, it should be near the top of your list. Thank you, C Bloom 82. Can you please weigh in on the police union not releasing a statement? Part of this is because it's so bad visually and audibly that there's not a lot of defense. And my guess is that they are anticipating the prosecution's case as far as policy goes. And that may have something to do with it. And then the fact that the 5 officers don't look the way a lot of the other people in the union look, that may have something to do with it as well. That has to be part of the analysis on this. Hey, Bo, you usually bring up people with a PhD who can win a bar fight with these events. Is there a specific group you're referring to? That was how they originally kind of recruited for the OSS way back in the day. That's what they were looking for. That's how they described it. They wanted a PhD, somebody who was very academically inclined, but who was also willing to mix it up. That was the personality that they were looking for, and it served them very well. I suspect Green Berets. So I would suggest that in many ways, the Green Berets do carry on a very similar legacy there, despite recent events. Thank you, Triva Joanne. I make playlists daily of 4 or 5 of your latest videos and press repeat and said about my day. If you post another, I just add it and re-listen to them all. Well, thank you. Thank you, Michelle Warmath. Thank you, James Photography Guy. Thank you, Computer User. My question, I'm not familiar with this event you're discussing. Could you give me some keywords to put into the search engine to understand? Memphis. That's all you're going to need. Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you, Gideon. This may be somewhat incidental, but when they tell him to get on the ground, the way they hold him, it seems it would prevent him from doing so, even if he wanted. The one off to the left of the screen that indicates he might break his stuff. I'm not sure, but that he could use that to apply pressure to stop him from it. I don't know that happened, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're asking. It's a possibility. Thank you, Culture Crash. Fist bumps from South Alabama. Thank you, Kitty C. The Tennessee case seemed like a pattern of behavior to me as well. This particular unit has apparently had a lot of reports in the past. I don't know all of the details of it yet, but it's something that I'm looking into. There are indications that they may have a history of this. As far as the unit itself, I don't know about these particular officers. Okay. And I'm just so y'all know what I'm doing. I'm scrolling up to see if I missed any questions. Peter, are you saying conservatives are bigoted? Not all of them. But when it comes to the average Republican right now, even if they're not, they've decided it's not a deal breaker. So Wilbur Jones, thank you. Remembering Emmett Till tonight. Thank you, Michael Leone. Thank you, Liana. Kicking Russia out of Ukraine is not enough. Russian supremacy is an inherent part of Russian identity. In 5 to 20 years, they will invade again. I don't know that that's the case. I understand what you're talking about from a historical perspective. Believe me, I get it. The world is changing, and some of the changes will. Sometimes it takes a very hard lesson, and I think that Russia may be in the middle of learning one of those. Thank you, Soccer Ladybug. Thank you, Norman Fujioka. Thank you, Jimothy Cricket. Is there a county or city that you'd say is already doing policing right? You have some that have made pretty big strides. I don't want to hold out a department and be like they're doing it right without like a whole lot of research. I can say, like as an example, there is over in Okaloosa County in Florida, they have a SWAT team, and they have been around since SWAT teams like became a thing. And I want to say in their entire time, they have taken out one person who is actively firing at the time. They don't have incidents like this. They also happen to be very well trained, and they put a lot of time into it. They go out of their way to remain a life-saving tool, which the origin of the SWAT team was actually supposed to be a good thing. And I mean, we're talking about going out of their way to take people into custody unharmed who have shot at them. And they've done a really good job. As far as one locally that I know, they haven't done anything major that would cause an issue. Okay. Let's see. Greetings from Tennessee. The last month or so, it's felt like the state's told various that something is going down. Yeah. So over the last, there has been contact. There's been contact between different departments before tonight, basically telling them to get ready. That's not a perception. That has definitely happened. And in fact, it's been admitted, and they've talked about it a few times, like on the air. But Memphis knew how bad it was going to be. Thank you, Smokey 5. I appreciate that. Thank you, Peter. That's sad. Thank you, Dodo Bird. Thank you, Larry Robinson. Thank you, Aaron Foster. Is there any justification in referring to aggressors as monsters, animals, or other dehumanizing terms? I get what you're saying. There are definitely problems with it, especially when you're in conversation and you're trying to make a point. There's definitely an issue with going about it that way. there are times when those terms are going to come out from people. One of the reasons that I waited almost an hour after watching to go live was because I was still in a mindset where I would not be my normal calming self. Um, um, Using dehumanizing language, there are times when it's a benefit, but they're pretty rare. Um, I think a lot of times when people do it, it is more out of frustration. Like when we're talking about a case like this, I think that's more frustration than them attempting to do it for the reasons that people typically want to dehumanize. Thank you, April Shadows. Future collab with biplot creators like Foreign Man or Saint Andrewism. Maybe. If you go to the other channel, The Roads with Bo, that's where most of the interviews are ending up now. It was actually a running joke until I want to say the very last interview over there that I had never had a white guy on. And that's because he's literally in Ukraine and had information that we wanted to talk about it. That was probably a gag I would have kept up from a long time because it bothered all the right people. And I would get messages saying, you never have a white guy on. And I'm sitting here like, I'm on. But thank you, Jake Runyon. Thank you, Brock Tree 3. Peter, universal thumb folded in, all four fingers folded. Well, there you go. Andrea Fox. If those medics stood there and just let the cops do it, they are just as guilty. Yeah. So in a hypothetical scenario, when a medic, EMT, they do have a duty to act, they have a duty to intervene. And I think that is something that is actually on the books in Tennessee. I'm not sure. But there are other possible reasons for them being relieved of duty. But that is definitely one of them. Thank you, Julie P. Thank you both for giving us the space to take in what's happened, for being a non-hysterical retelling and sharing of the information. Thank you. Thank you, Alan Summervold. Thank you, a lumpy horse. Somehow stumbled into the Bo Peeps and here to stay, learning so much here, and any luck becoming. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are being very nice tonight. Very flattering. Thank you, Stephen Dobb. Do you think the UK, US, and German special forces are currently active in Ukraine? No, definitely not. However, there might be a bunch of contractors who used to be, they were former US, UK, or German special operations, but not active. I mean, they would be out already. Thank you, Karen Murphy. Thank you, Bad Pirate Monkey. Shabbat Shalom. Holocaust Remembrance Day 2023. Never again to anyone. Thank you, Aaron Foster. Scorpion. Thought it was some acronym. No, I'm with you. I was following where you're going with that. Thank you, KH. Thank you, Stephen Smith. Reminder that the ACLU has an app for both Android and iOS that automatically uploads any videos filmed with it to their servers. So if there is a situation that you want documented, maybe those apps are right for you, I think is what the person is getting at. And if I'm not mistaken, their app even records with the screen black. So people don't know that it is recording. Thank you, Darkly Coy. Thank you, Danoe D. Thank you, Akasha Gray. Love from Kansas. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Seymour Jackson. Caroline Cooper Smith. Foggy Ozark G. James Moyner. I think given the habit of people on the conservative side not taking preventative measures, I think that any future developments when it comes to public health issues are going to hit them harder because it has now become a culture war touchstone for them. Thank you, Kaylin Feely. Thank you, Jonathan Savarase. Thank you, Foggy Ozark G. Thank you, Silver Rain. Thank you, Nocturnal Druid, Dastardly B, Chain Smoking Lefty. Have you heard anything about third group involving an FBI investigation? Yeah, that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago when I said despite recent events. Yeah, there is quite an investigation occurring up there right now. And I don't know how widespread it is, but it does not look good. So I would expect that to hit real news. Like once all of the allegations come out, I would expect that to hit probably sometime next week is when they're really going to start talking about it. Thank you, Michael McNamara, Jim Gallant. How is it police seem to have less restrictions in policing than the military does in combat during war? My real question is how they can get away with constantly. It's how they can get away with constantly disregarding the restrictions that they have. That to me is a big question. Thank you, a lumpy horse. Any plans to have a kindred spirit W in Spanish? I'm not sure. It's something that we've actually kind of talked about. We have a bunch of projects that we're working on, and this would be after all of those. But it's something that we've tossed around. I'm a little concerned that the way I talk doesn't translate well. I think it might be better for somebody who is a Spanish speaker to do it on their own, to make it their own, and to present it. A lot of times the messenger accounts for a lot. And I don't know, either me in my limited Spanish or somebody dubbing me I don't know how effective it would be. Okay. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you, Jonathan Guthridge. Thank you. Thank you, Inquisitor Holt. Thank you, Jake Runyon. Will do. I will keep that in mind. Coach Mike, what product, if any, do you use for that beard? No, Dove soap, actually. Dove soap. I've actually had people send me different stuff to put in my beard, and I've tried them, but honestly, I have a beard not out of a fashion statement or anything like that, but because I don't want to shave. I don't want to deal with it, and I don't, I don't have to be socially accepted in the world that I inhabit. So Let's see. Thank you, Chris Flatos. Any idea of the government's current expectations? Oh, yeah, there's going to be more. The government is going to continue, and by the government, this is red states, will continue to try to other people based on orientation, identity, romantic partner, all of that. That is going to be their move. And they're already stepping up to it. I would note, and this is not a huge relief to the people who are being impacted by this, but even with the current Supreme Court, a lot of the legislation that's getting proposed will not stand, even with those people. But that doesn't stop the rhetoric, which in turn creates a lot of situations for things to escalate beyond rhetoric. It's not a good position, and I don't see an end to it anytime soon. I think that will continue at least until the next election. Thank you, Amanda Farmer. Something for a bag of apples for Miss Marilyn. Will do. Thank you, BTS, for me. You're a great sane voice. I don't feel like that sometimes. I got to be honest. Thank you, James Massey. New audio gear is great. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Got a link to you from a guy at work. Wasn't sure at first, but I've grown to appreciate your point of view. Well, thank you, and thank him. Gideon, thank you. Man, that's a video. I'm not even reading that. I'm going to steal that. Thank you, Koi Kane. Thank you, Don Alexander. Thank you, Every Pane of Glass. I read Robert Evans's thread, and it seemed like he said EMT showed up and just didn't do anything for a long while, that they have some kind of duty to care. My perception of that is what the video appears to show, by my perception. And I think that I think we may hear more about that in the future. Just remember, everybody is going to be super careful with their language on this one because criminal proceedings have already started. Well, they should be super careful with their language. Thank you, 95 Brick House. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Miss P. Do you think if the police were white, we would have seen such a swift action taken by the department? I don't know. It's a question that really needs to be asked. I think in this case, maybe, because it's so bad. But I don't know. Like, let's say there's a situation where it is all white officers in this exact scenario, but the person survives. Would we have seen charges? I can't say yes. I definitely think that is something that needs to be looked at. I think that needs to be analyzed because there is a disconnect between the speed at which this happened. And I think it is, I think it's worth looking into. Thank you, Jurgen. Thanks for going live tonight. Yeah, it seemed like a good idea. Thank you, BG Maxi. A video of what it means to be left, right with examples, countries. Break the misconception that... yeah, I have. So we have a video. There's a video on the channel. I think it's called Let's Talk About Liberals, the Left, in a Phone Call. The phrase "a phone call" is in it. If you were to search Bo, the fifth column phone call, it would probably show up. And it's a bit between me and a person named Maxi, and we're going back and forth. And she actually explains all the different types of left. and that's been useful, but I think I get what you're saying, as in showing what a uh, like a social democracy looks like, and showing that that isn't actually what people are envisioning. That would be nice. The problem is that with a lot of them, there's only a totalitarian version of that particular ideology. I don't know if that's fair. I don't know. I'll look into it. It's a neat concept. Uh, Thank you, Corvin Gallows. Thank you, Ezra Knox. How long have we been Bo Peeps? I don't know. I like that too. That was funny to me because I wasn't thinking little Bo Peep. I was thinking like the little marshmallow things, and that just made it even funnier. Um, Thank you, Moonbeanification. Thank you, Renee Dupuy. Odemir, how do you stay hopeful for society? Ah, society moves slow. It's the same fight over and over. Yeah. Um, you have to. You don't have a choice. I mean, I'm not somebody who gives up. And I think that's those who succumb to doomerism. A lot of times that's how I view it. I don't. I'm not somebody who really believes in surrender. Um, and I feel like I'm not going to use that quote. I feel like things are bending the right way. It's just time, and there's always a lot of heartache and tragedy along the way. Um, so okay. Let's see. How do we get to the point? How do we get the point across that supporting police and holding them to a high standard of professionalism are not mutually exclusive? Repetition. Uh, Repetition and drawing. Most people that you have to make this point to are those who would say back the blue. These are often the same people who are terrified of agencies like the ATF. So make sure that when you say cop, that you indicate that the ATF is part of that. They want the ATF held to higher standards. It should apply across the board. You have to appeal to their personal interest. A lot of the people who tend to view it as you either, support law enforcement no matter what they do, or, you're out to destroy them, is most of the people who have that view would be susceptible to that, comparing it to the ATF. Let's see. Thank you, Jeremy. Would you consider a chat with the funky academic over on the roads? I mean, I'd consider talking to just about anybody, unless, as long as they're not spreading a message that I think is actively harmful, and I think that there's something the audience can get out of it. I'd probably talk to them. The ACLU has become a weapon of the left. It is good to know that defense of constitutional rights is being equated with the left. Skynet, any tips for a leftist from California that's moving to rural Tennessee? Oh, I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, yeah, you're in for it when it comes to representing our ideals. Well, I'd like to get involved with the community when I get there and don't want to do damage. Start with never using all of the terms that you're accustomed to using. And when you're asked, talk about unions and co-ops. This is something. Send me a message on Twitter because there's a lot to this, particularly depending on which part of rural Tennessee you're moving into. Like if you're moving into the eastern side of Tennessee, up in the mountains, stuff like that, that's going to be a whole lot easier than some places in the rural western part of the state. Yeah. Send me a message about that. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Nicholas. Do you have advice on what to do when you're a doer or fixer when a friend tells you about something bad someone did to them, but then ask you not to tell anyone, do anything about it? Context to follow. Okay. Well, I don't know what the context is, but generally, if somebody says, people who are prone to action, people who are prone to act and want to fix things and want to get out there and resolve an issue, have to remember that not everybody's that way. And if somebody specifically tells you to not say anything, they may not want you to actually do anything. They may just want you to listen, and that they may just need to vent about it. I was really bad about this for a very long time, this has led to a lot of the things people find weird today. Like when I don't identify people when they send a message, this is why. I hold things in confidence unless you are specifically asked to get involved. Jimmy Liebeck, what is the tipping point for police and gun reform? God, I wish I knew. When people say that, I think most of them are picturing a moment where everything slides their direction. Yeah, I don't know that that's anytime soon. Police reform, I think police reform will happen long before gun reform in this country. I think that there will be instances that push more and more people to question the way law enforcement behaves. And if enough of them make it something that they contact representatives about, that they voice their concerns about, however they wish to voice them, that eventually it will become a legislative priority to solve that issue. When it comes to real gun reform, you have to shift an entire culture and keep it shifted long enough to change the Constitution. That's going to be way harder, and it's going to take way longer. I don't foresee gun reform the way people picture it when they say that really occurring. I think something else will end up taking its place, and there will be a shift in the gun culture. I think eventually there will be pushback against the crazy rhetoric from inside the gun crowd. And I think that's going to be more valuable than anything that's going to happen from the outside. Thank you, Art and Toy Theory at Rickstro. Thank you, Windwalker. I'm in an all parties consent state for recording. How can someone document workplace violations, uncertainty principle plus retaliation? Lawyer. That is a question for a lawyer. In some cases, the violations, some of the penalties that go along with recording in states where you can't actually record without everybody's consent, some of those penalties are huge depending on how they charge them. This is a question for a lawyer, and not like a lawyer on YouTube. Like this is, you've got to get a very specific answer. And most lawyers, their favorite phrase is "it depends" because it's complicated. Definitely talk to a lawyer on this one. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Rattlesnake Haven. I believe it's not a crisis of partisanism. I think it's a crisis of rationality. Yeah, I get what you're saying there, and that tracks in a lot of ways. However, it is most apparent through partisan lenses, and that and if you go out and you actually make the full argument that goes along with the idea that it's not partisan and that it's rational, and that people are behaving irrational, you you tend to come off as pretty condescending. um, and I say this as somebody who's tried to make the argument a couple of times. There's there is strong evidence to support what you're saying, um, but it is incredibly hard to frame that evidence in a way that is not insulting, and may end up driving them more into that pit than helping. Thank you, Zian Kuriyama. This is my first time living in a city that might actually see major protest over the police. I am unable to attend. What should I do to help and for safety? Okay, so generally speaking, unless you're actively involved, you don't need to worry about your safety. That is not a common occurrence with large demonstrations. Those who are not involved generally do not get like pulled into it. It has happened, but it's very rare. As far as what you should do to help, I mean, this is one of those things where you have to determine your own level of involvement. Depending on the type of demonstration, a lot of them, they may just need water dropped off. You know, if it's an incredibly organized and very relaxed type of demonstration, that may be all they need. And you could be a big help in that way. They may need, it's colder. They may need warm clothes. They may need a heater. They may need batteries, something like that. A lot of times you can find people organizing what groups need via social media. If it starts to not be an organized, peaceful event, and I mean, what you're saying, this is your first time and you're asking what to do, my advice, don't go. Stay out of it. So again, when it comes to stuff like that, you have to figure out where you're at, more so than where they're at. Okay. God, I'm scrolling back up and I just passed the question, what police violence thing are we talking about now? And I don't know if that was a genuine question or they were being sarcastic and had to be right. It happened to be right. Let's see. Thank you, Elizabeth Vasquez. These men get fired. White men get leave with pay. Different government agencies, and I would definitely take a wait and see attitude to that. I do not know that everything has finished playing out with this case. Red wave of ketchup. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren Halling. Thank you, Cookie. Do you feel? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Those people who sit there and talk about the men who stormed the beaches of Normandy and whatever, and then go to a fascist rally, or a fascist adjacent rally, yeah, no, they've definitely betrayed those people they view as idols. Um, um, the last carnival, that's gonna turn into a video. Um, that's one of those things when people ask, this state is targeting my being, me as an individual through legislation. They're coming after me. Should I stay or should I go? That is one of those questions where, again, you're determining your level of involvement. I am one of those people who says that if you have doubts about staying, you should probably not stay. Um, I don't. I don't buy into the macho stuff. There are people who are not active targets of that legislation who will continue the fight. Um, so I don't think that it's a necessity for you to stay. At the same time, if you feel you should, then you should, um, because there is a need for people who can represent the the group being targeted by the legislation. Um, so it's, again, a lot of these questions are questions that should be answered by you, your family, your personal situation, and how much you are honestly willing to put yourself out there like that. Um, Thank you, Andrea Dulles. As former Navy MA, your police commentary is spot on. My last name is pronounced like Dole. Oh, there you go. Dole with an S. You mispronounced it last time. Doles. I mispronounced it this time too. Thank you, Andrea Doles. Ah, thank you, Maddie Alexander. Do you think there will be right wing people going to cause problems at the demonstrations? Yes. We don't even have to get into the cities and the situations. Yes. They will view this as an opportunity. Thank you, Wendy Cox. I'm concerned that maybe they're scapegoating these particular cops for something that doesn't seem to be that unusual, judging by their body language. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the idea that there's an institutional problem here that may be overlooked if, because of the speed at which the department acted, people may say, oh, well, it's not actually an issue there. Mine isn't based on the body language. Mine is the speed at which they went to physical contact. I have a lot of questions about that. Um, yeah, it's a valid concern. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Les Albro. Not everyone is fit to be in a position of authority and interact with the public. Fact. Yeah. Yeah. And that is very true. And oftentimes those most ill-suited for having that much authority are the ones who want it, which is not helpful. Thank you, Marilyn Davis. Thank you to Richard L. Realistic Willie, what do the Western tanks mean for Ukraine? Ability to take back Donbass, Crimea? Maybe. I have some videos on this, and there will probably be more coming out because I feel like the channel has turned into Botox tanks this week. It's not just the tanks. It's the tanks, the infantry fighting vehicles. It's everything that they're getting together. It's giving them a lot of options for a lot of firepower with a lot of mobility, and given the speed at which they can move, they can achieve surprise in ways that really haven't been seen in this conflict much. Again, I've made jokes about, the thunder running across the background of the camera and everything. I expect to see thunder runs occurring. I really do, especially with the equipment that they have now. And I feel comfortable saying that at this point because with the equipment they have now that's inbound, that the Russian government doesn't have anything that could stop it. So thank you, Frank Dalton. Pumpy needs 2 toys. Thank you, Scott Halquist. Thanks for making it okay for me to laugh at the ineptitude of the leadership of the House. Thank you, Bridget Smith. Thank you, Knight of Avalon. Sorry, what police violence thing happened now? Yep, that's what it is. Thank you, Lauren Holling. Have you heard of strong towns, and do you think strong towns can help progress for building a community network? I have not heard of them. And I'll look into them. Let's see what it is. Thank you, Deanna McHugh. Thank you, Pam Rogers. Tell us more about your dream for the U.S. and the world. I may actually revisit that video sometime soon. The world I want. Let's see. Thank you, Tim Kenna. Thank you, Mike. Is it Mickey's S? When you showed up in my YouTube Rex, I thought they were trying to get me an opposing point of view. That's the nicest way anybody said that. Normally, it's like when I first saw you, I thought you were a racist. Like, thank you, K-Soleil. Thank you, Stephen Kernan. Thank you, JD Wilder. A Lumpy Horse with a 2-parter. Are you on the radio? Second question. Any chance of subtitles for your videos? So subtitles on YouTube, you should be able to turn them on. They normally take a few minutes to show up though lately. That's something I've noticed. The video goes public and then like 15, 20 minutes later, the captions will arrive. I am not on the radio. I'm on Spotify, but I am not on the radio. Although I'm aware of times when radio stations have taken episodes and put them on or whatever. But I don't have a show. Thank you, Michael. Still vote Republican, but love your videos. Keep up the great work. Fair enough. Thank you, JD Wilder. Thank you, Troy Kendall, Sean Durval. Thank you, Gideon. We make a video about either. My screen did that jump thing. It's funny. I was watching this clip the other day where it shows an AI that basically allows somebody who is streaming to maintain eye contact even when they're looking away. And I have to be honest, it is the creepiest thing I've ever seen. It sounded like a good idea, but unflinching eye contact at that level is actually kind of unnerving. Will you make a video about either the UK anti-protest bill or the tensions between the UK and Scottish government over the Gender Recognition Act? I'm going to be honest, neither one of those were on my radar, but I will now look into them because that sounds interesting. Let's see. What is ATF? It is an agency inside the United States that specifically goes after alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Generally, conservative people dislike this agency because they have a they have a history of making less than proper moves that have caused real problems. Thank you, Patricia T. I'm an EMT. We're not legally able to set foot on a scene like that until the cops declare it to be safe. Not saying this is what happened, but yeah. So I'm not sure what the law is in that area, but I think that there are going to be questions about it. Thank you, Gil Grimes. Always glad to catch a live stream, even if I had to set an alarm. Let's see. Any thoughts on the latest Russian delivery systems and how they impact the MAD doctrine? They don't. Not really. Their ability. So the extra speed doesn't really matter that much as far as getting them off the ground from this side. MAD is still in effect, in other words. Thank you, Barry Thomas. Thank you, Autistic Wolf. I watch your live streams every day while on lunch at work. You become a staple of my everyday infotainment, and I'm grateful. Here's $5. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Safekeeper. I couldn't think of anything clever to write. Thank you, Omar. Any thoughts on? Okay, so for people who don't know, there is another situation that is in Atlanta, in that may end up very similar to this one. We don't know yet. I have questions about it. There's lack of body cam footage, and in some cases there should be. And there's also differing accounts. I'm trying to get more information on it. So as far as any thoughts on it, not yet. But that is something that is definitely on my radar. After there are some inconsistencies that I have questions about. So thank you, Art and Toy Theory at Rickstraw. When do you think Boebert and Green? Oh, they're already arguing, and I think it's going to get worse because I think Green recognizes that the current situation is not to her benefit. So I think that she is going to lash out. She is going to try to become a little bit more of a figure. And the best way for her to do that is to knock Boebert down. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, T-Day Slab Dragon. Okay. What do we have here? All right. Let's see. Thank you, Mark Berger. How many t-shirts do you own? I don't know. I don't have a clue. A lot. Like way more than you would guess. Like it's a pile. In San Francisco, we're just trying to find the sweet spot between bots and maybe enforcing laws. Peter, can I ask your affiliation? I'm still rather new to your views. I am ridiculously anti-authoritarian and to the left. So if you're looking for a political party, I'm not one. I have, at the same time, I have major issues with the Trump wing in particular, and those who are mimicking him within the Republican Party, because they are authoritarian right. They're polar opposites. We don't get along. Let's see. Thank you, Frank. 40 years ago, 4 Syracuse police officers beat a disabled man, 49 years old, Raul Mora, death. The officers were acquitted and celebrated at a bar. New York Times article online. Thank you, NKV. Thank you, Elizabeth Roberts. Thank you, Technical Fool. Watch too many of your videos. Not to, thank you. Thank you, Flo R. Thank you. Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you, Bloodroot. Thank you, Jessica Hicks. I feel like all those just got a lot more charged than it was. Got charged out on Bell. I don't know. I'm missing something, I'm sure. Mispronouncing names is streamer culture. That is from Punski. Okay. So we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to try to get through what's here. Oh, wow. There's a whole lot on there. Okay. Sean Dorval, I remember when Reagan laid a wreath at. Man, I hope that's an abbreviation for Secret Service. I'll look into that. Thank you, Robin Owens. Thank you, Lisa Fuqua. We should never allow the people who want to be police to be them. Yeah, I'm starting to think that needs to be settled with a draft. Knights of Avalon. That was a genuine question. Oh, good. Thank you, Peter. I think the black cops there are given more leeway to interact with black community, or that how do you think we are to a war? We're not. I don't. That's not a. Okay. Thank you, Frankie Salamander. Bo, really enjoy your videos. Worth watching your videos, especially enjoy your videos about Ukraine. New IFVs and MBTs shall make a nice armored fist. They will. Ukraine war, cognitive dissonance between satisfaction in Ukrainian grains and pity for Russian grunts. Oh, I feel you there. It's one of those things, and actually I had somebody send a message on it because apparently there's somebody else on YouTube who provides relatively similar commentary, and both of us in our videos are like, please remember, once all this cool equipment gets there, it's gonna get used, and that's bad. And then we're providing that very somber, realistic. This is the horrible stuff that is going to occur. And then we're both over on Twitter, posting tank memes. I feel you on that. I feel bad for most of the Russian troops because most of them are not volunteers. They don't want to be there. They're ill trained, and they are not ready for what's coming. But at the same time, I feel pity for them until they cross into Ukraine. Thank you, Joyous Madman. Lots of overtime means this is often the best way I can help. Thank you. I will do what I can. Thank you, Trekkie. If we don't see a video on Ukrainian of Ukrainian combined arms while AC/DC's Thunderstruck is blaring from speakers, I will be greatly disappointed. I think we're going to end up seeing something pretty similar. I from Iowa. What do you think of Cop City? That's the situation in Atlanta, by the way, that I was talking about. Thank you, Don Burrow. Thank you, iQuestion. Thank you, AJ Robertson. Ronna Rideout, Heather Miller. Thanks for the tank talk. Please get the pony some treats. I will try. Thank you, Annie A. Can you bump up that excellent video on police training and how it fails? Yes. Yeah, I'll put it back up. Also, maybe one on helping those who haven't had PTSD help those experiencing it there, because everything. Yeah, that's probably a good idea too. Yeah, I will try to do that. Um, let's see, where are we at? Okay, thank you, Moyer. Thank you, Silent Trimmer. Thank you, April Shadows. We'd love to see you guest appear on the left. Thank you, Christine Radcliffe. Thank you. Colin Kilpatrick's the new documentary destroys the Speaker of the House in his district. Thank you, Dangerous Days. No, that's sad. Okay. Thank you, Penguin Guy. I'm changing the date of Australia Day. I will look at it. Yeah, a lot of. So I guess this time is the ideal time to get the international questions that I have to look up. So, all right. Michael. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Richard Seymour. Buddy Naher. It's funny. That's the second time I've been asked this, and I don't think you're the same person. So this is a question about Rick and Morty and me yanking those shirts out of the lineup versus the Beatles, because there are. I actually don't know that the word admitted here. I know there are allegations. So of similar domestic behavior. So why do I wear Beatles shirts? The Beatles aren't going to gain a platform anymore. Like the platform that they're using is not helping them to do that, and they're not profiting off of that. It's one of those things where if the people really just aren't even here anymore, it's a little bit of a different situation. When I went through in that video, there's literally nobody in art in any way that you can find that doesn't have some problematic issue. The question is what fits, and with something that I can very easily replace on a channel that is very much, aligned with supporting DV shelters, it's not something that I could do. Now, my understanding, and I haven't checked it out yet, but I heard that the person has been removed and that the show is going to continue without them. So let's see. Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Tammy Switzer Hagler. Do you think they would have been fired so quickly if they weren't in a color? I don't know. I have questions. I think that this is a particularly bad case that may have sped things along, but I'm not sure if that's everything. It's something that should be analyzed. Thank you, Brian G. Thank you, Sean Britcher. Thank you, Peter. Those were two separated questions. I have friends in Russia, and they have been pulled into the military. They're telling me they will give up at the first chance. That's probably a really good idea. That's probably a very smart move. Thank you, Alex Medina. Thank you, Mimi Risher. Thank you, Midnight Platypus. Okay, so I think Brian G. I think that's it. Thank you, Greg White. I think I have everybody. And so I'm going to go out now. Been doing this for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So we're definitely hopping offline now. I appreciate y'all kind of joining me tonight. And if you have any other questions, I'll probably be active on Twitter tonight, and I will be checking the inbox over there. So just y'all hang in there. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Andrew Hassett. I hope I got that out before it ended.